Beginning current Daf Masechta Shabbos Daf Peidal. Begin on the bottom line, last two words on the Pegimon base, where the Gemara is in the middle of a discussion with the previous Daf regarding the halacha of our Mishnah of Minayin, where we're in the series of Mishnayos regarding Minayin. Where do we know from regarding a Svina that it's Tahar? We have two different interpretations. The Gemara is in the middle of that explanation. Our Sheikh's co-sponsor by Kazak and Cheskel, Torah Anytime, Daf Achayim, Zoom Oilam. I don't know if they're joining us. We had the halacha of the previous Mishnah. Boats cannot become tummy. Now, we're going to be discussing there's two different opinions regarding why boats cannot become tummy and the parameters of the halacha. Additionally, which types of kelim become tummy through medris. It's not every type of kli that does. We'll discuss different types of wagons and different types of boxes. Additionally, the tumah of medris is when a zav, a zava, a nido, when they lie on something, then that weight on that object creates a tumah of medris, which actually generally gives the tumah of the zav itself to the object itself. Additionally, a wooden vessel requires a base kibble, a receptacle to become tummy, but whereas mats are not going to become tummy, that's going to be part of the Gemara's question at one point regarding we see that a mat is not makabel tumah. Additionally, kli cheres, what's called lesle tahar b'mikvah, does not have a purification in the mikvah, as the pasuk says, the kli cheres asher yiga by hazav yishav. If a zav touches a vessel, you have to break it. As Rashi explains, in you cannot be matar a metal vessel. If it comes time, you can put into the mikvah. A earthenware vessel cannot be purified. The only way you can purify is by breaking it. This we're going to be discussing in the next Mishnah, a very complex discussion regarding the halachas of klayim, which continues into the next daf, regarding the distances you have to make from different types of seeds. You're not allowed to mix different seeds. That's considered a hybrid as klayim, a forbidden mixture. We're going to see that regarding the certain parameters of how you can plant different seeds in different formations and in different distances to allow the different types of seeds to be planted in the same patch. So we continue. We begin the current daf Pegimel Mabez on the bottom of the last two words, which will explain the halacha of Chananya. Again, we had two different opinions. Why is a svina? Why is a boat tar? Either because the pasuk compares it derech ani b'lev yam, it compares it to the sea, just like the sea is tar, so too is a ship. Or Chananya gave a different interpretation. It says because a boat is made out of wood, and a kli eitz, the pasuk compares to a sock. So it's just like a sock has to be able to be metal to molibrik, and you have to be able to move it full and empty. So too, a boat has to be able to, which is not. It's when it's full, it cannot be moved. So because it cannot be carried when it's full, and therefore it's going to be tar. On that, the Gemara continues qualifying that teaching even more. Amar Rava, let's continue to have a pedal manal. It says Ulachananya, according to Chananya, that he says a boat that could be moved when it's full, then it's going to be tamei. Unlike the opinion of our Mishnah, it's always going to be tar because it's compared to the sea. But according to him, the reason why it's usually tar is because it cannot be moved. But if it could be moved when it's full, then it's like a sackcloth, and then it's going to be tamei. So he says a chiddush. He says even if it's tiltal de shvarim, even if the only way you can move this boat is by oxen pulling it because it's so big you can't move it, still shmei tiltal. That would be considered as that it's movable. And therefore it's going to be kabel tumah, because ultimately it can be moved when it's full. Albeit you need oxen to pull it, but still, as the Gemara says yes, that would be considered as that it's movable when it's full. It's not like we're in the Mishnah Masechtas Kale, which we're going to bring in, again, like we always say in Talmudic style, a different discussion, so you have to get into that discussion. But from that discussion, we're going to bring a proof for this concept. The Mishnah says like this: Shalosh Agolas, saying there's three types of wagons that we're going to qualify as to relate to laws of Tumah. You have those that are suya kikatidra. It's made like a chair, which means, say, it's narrow, it's surrounded on three sides, and you sit in it, basically like this wagon you'll have in Times Square, you'll have different places. These are the wagons that the Mishnah is talking about. So that type of wagon, if you sit on it, Tanei Medrash, you could have a tumah of Medrash. Why? Because it's designated for sitting purposes. And hence, anything that's designated for sitting purposes, Zava, or need to sit on it, it's going to have a tumah of Medrash. Then you have the second type of category, which is Kemita, like a bed, which is long, and it accepts things from the bottom, like a bed made out of leather, which doesn't have any holes. So here, if it had leather on the bottom, so it's used for carrying things. So that's going to have the halacha of Tamei Tamei Mes. If you have the Tumah of Mes, what it really means to say is that it contracts all other Tumas except for Tumah Medus, because it's considered a receptacle for the laws of Tumah, but not for sitting, because it's not really meant for sitting. It's meant for putting on merchandise and cargo. So we tell the person, whoever's sitting down, we tell them, hey, get up, we want to do our work. Now, why does it say specifically it has the Tumah of Mes? That's just to say that it could even have the status of an Ava Tumah. In other words, it can become an avatuma through a dead person. So if, let's say there's a dead person in here, the dead person touching it, the dead person's aviyavois, that will make this wagon into an avatuma. But it means to say only that avatuma could have that of tumas maga, of mess, but it cannot have the tuma of medrus. That avatuma, when the zav sits on it, will not have, because we say amoy v'nasa malachtein. That's the second type of wagon. Then you have the third type of wagon, which is shalavana. You have a wagon that's made to transport stones. That's tahir meklum. That's not going to have any tumah whatsoever. Why is it not going to be kabel any tumah? It's because the bottom of the wagon has huge holes, because for large stones, it could be large gaps in the wagon. And if it's not a vessel, because every vessel has to be that the measurements cannot be holes larger than the pomegranate. So therefore, since this wagon has such large holes, so it's not going to become tamei at all. Has no tumah of medrash, because it's not meant for sitting. Has no tumah of a kli, because it has such large holes. Now that Rabbi Yochanan says v'im yesh b'beis kibul reminded, but if let's say it has a receptacle, in other words, the holes are not larger than the pomegranate, then tamei mes, then even this wagon will also have the tumah of maga of a mess, because it has the halacha like a kli. But one thing, as Rashi explains the Gemara's proof, is that we see that even though the wagon's made out of wood, and as we know, the wooden vessels are compared to a sackcloth, which it has to be able to be moved, mali v'reikin full, and when it's empty. Now this wagon could only be moved. This is a very heavy wagon, it's loaded up with stones. Could only be moved through oxen, and still was saying that if it doesn't have holes larger than a rimoin, it's going to have a tumah of mass. That supports Rabbi's teaching that yes, you could qualify something as metalti mali v'reikin to have a tumah, even if it only be moved through shvarim, but ultimately it can be moved and it can be carried when it's full. Therefore, it's going to have the halachic status of tumah. Now, once we introduce this halacha, so we also go then and we just Taisus wonders why we're bringing this in, but it's a very similar halacha. Shalish tevesim. There's three types of boxes, three types of chests, and the laws of tumah. You have teva shepischa mitzida. You have a box that opens up on the side, so tamei medrus. That can have a tumah of medrus. Why? Because a person can lay on the chest even when you're doing the work with it, because the opening is on the side. So you don't have to tell the person who's laying on, get up, we need to do our work. I'm laying on the top. You can do the work, the opening is on the side. So yes, it's going to have a tumah medrus because the person can sit on that chest too. Let's say milmalo, let's say the opening is on the top, which Rashi says like our types of boxes open up on the top. Then tamei tamei mes. Then the most this box is going to be able to be is have tumas of mes. In other words, like we said in the previous cases that we spoke about, that category, it could become an avatuma through a dead person, like all other vessels which are fit to be mekabel tumah, which is, let's say, it's in the oila mes, so it's going to become an avatuma. But regarding other tumas, it's not going to be an avatuma, it's going to be a rishon tumah, like all other vessels where it goes one step less. The only thing that the Mishnah is coming to tell us is that it's a vessel regarding the laws of tumah, but not for laws of medrus, because it's not designated for laying. And if we say, get up, we need to do our work, you're sitting on the top, we can't open up the box without you getting up. That's the main idea. The third type of box is v'habo b'mida. That which is a large box, which is not movable, and the window is on the top to be able to use it from the top, meaning you're not moving it, but that's where you open it up from. So that's tar meklum. That says the Mishnah is totally tar. Why? It's not fit for medrus because the window is on the top. So you can't sleep on it when you're doing the work because hey, get off. We need to be able to do our work over here. And for other tumas, it's also not fit because it cannot be metaltelas mole. It can't be moved when it's full because it's too heavy. As Rashi says, what's the terminology? Ba b'mida. It's like anshe midas that we find in the Torah, which means say it's so big it has to be measured the length and the breadth. That's what we mean that ba b'mida is very large. So such something that's very heavy does not have tumah medrus because opening on the top. It doesn't have tumah mes. Doesn't have a tumah as a keli because it's not metaltelas mole mereka. Now. So again, this is all brought in because just to prove the point of Rava, which is qualifying in Chananya, that it has to be metalteles. And the reason why it's not mekabel tumah is because it's not metalteles molim reika when it's a svina. But if the svina could be moved through shvarim, we see that he brought a proof in the Mishnah and Masechtas Kalim. If that's the only way the wagon can be moved, it's considered kli. Therefore, the same would apply to the boat. Now, talking about in the brayse, continue this halacha of our Mishnah of the tumah of a boat. So medrus kli, we bring the following brayse: medrus kli cheres. If a zav sits on an earthenware vessel, which that's what medrus is, but it doesn't touch the ear space of the kli cheres, that says the Tanakama, tar it's going to be tar. Meaning it's not going to have the tumah of medrus. And the Gemara is going to bring the source for this. Why not? Why is kli cheres doing all of the kelim that are mekabel tumas medrus from a sav? That Tanakama says going to be tar. Rabbi Yosi says afasina also the boat. Now the Gemara asks, my comma, what is Rabbi Yosi saying? Like Rashi says, Ma'in Yitzvita as a Medris. Ma'in Shmita as Har Sinai. What does a boat have to do with Medris? In other words, a boat is tar for Medris? What do you mean? A boat's not even having come as a maga, like we said in the Halacha Mishnah, we're getting off in the previous daf. And it's not even fit for Medris, as we said from Tais the previous daf. It's not meant for Medris. So what exactly are you saying, Av Hasrina? So Rav Ziri says, but this is what the Rabbi Yisrael is coming to say. The Tanakama opens up by saying, Medris Kli Cheres Tahar. Yes, the weight of a Zav, sitting down or laying down in the other vessel is going to be Tahar. But the inference is, and this is what Rabbi Yisrael is going to be going on, obviously, but Umagoy Tameh. But if the Zav touches the inside of the Kli Cheres, then he's going to make it Tameh. It's only Medris not going to happen. And the Tanakama, which he doesn't say these words, but this is inferred from Rabbi Yisrael disagreeing, Usvina Shel Cheres. And okay, so we're talking about earthenware. Now, a boat made out of earthenware, that will be Tameh, that will be Tameh with the Tamah of Maga. Who's that like? That's Kechananya. That's like Chananya, who we discussed in the previous stop, that he says that the reason why a boat is not Makabal Tamah is you learn it out, you compare it to a sak. Now, Cheres, as we said in the previous stop, is not compared to a sak, and therefore it will be Tameh. So if a boat made out of earthenware will be Tameh. And that's Rabbi Yisrael is coming to say that Afas Svina Tahir. He says, no, also a boat's going to be tar. Like a regular Kli Cheres, meaning not really the regular Kli Cheres, this is actually the Gemara's question, but he says also a boat's going to be tar from even Maga, which that would be Ketana Didan. That, like we said in the previous stuff, that's one of the differences between Chananya and Tanava Mishnah. They learned that from Belev Yam. Here it's also Belev Yam, so no matter what the boat's made out of, it's like the sea, which is going to be Tahar. So essentially, the way the Gemara, Rav Tzvid explained the machlekes in the Brisa was really the machlekes we had in the previous daf between Chananya and the Tanava Mishnah. Now, but on that, Masker Rav Papa asks, he says, it's still difficult. Okay, you worked it out to explain what their opinions are and to show how their machlekes is really machlekes Chananya and Tanava Mishnah. But my af, what does it mean also a boat? Obviously, you're trying to say that a boat is going to be tar even for maga, from touching, because for medrus it's not meant for medrus. So what he's saying, af. But the Tanakama did not say that a Kli Cheres is tahar for maga, that you should say that also a boat's tahar. He said the maga of a Kli Cheres is tameh. And he says regarding, he didn't say anything regarding anything else. So what are you saying, also a boat what? Also a boat is tahar? The way Rabbi Zvid had said it, he said it that, again, that Rabbi Yossi is like the Tana of our Mishnah, and Tanakama is like Chananya. But that way is difficult, because then what would af mean? So Elam Papa, he really says the same thing, but he reverses it around. He says, this is how you're supposed to read the Brisa, and then you'll understand what the af also means. It says, Medrus Kli Cheres Tar. So the Medrus, and this is the final interpretation of the Gemara, that when a Zav sits on the Kli Cheres, so that's going to be tar, and we're going to explain shortly where do we have that source, why that is, why there's no Medrus on the Kli Cheres. Barumagoy, so that's the inference, but if he touches the Kli Cheres, then it's going to be tummy from the ear space of the Kli Cheres. Now, but what is not mentioned in the Brisa, but has to be like that, is Vishal Eitz. Now, let's say the vessel is made out of wood. Oh, Beimedrasa, Beimagoy tummy. Then, yes, there's going to be tum of Maga and tum of Medrus, like a regular Kli Eitz. If you sit on it like a chest, of course, you're going to have a tum of Medrus. Now, Usvinas Hayardin, and the boat of the Jordan River, Tahira, that's going to be tar. Who's that going like? So, according to this interpretation, the Tanakama is Ketani Didan. He's like the Tana of our Mishnah, that he learns it out from Belev Yam, so it doesn't make a difference if it's big or it's small. So even though it's the Sfinas Hayardin, it's a small boat, it's still going to have the Tuma of a boat, which Rashi says, the truth is, we could have answered other ways. Also, it's just, this is going to be the more common type of an example. Now, and that Rabbi Yisrael comes to say that no, Afas Svina, when he's saying Afas Svina, although the words are not mentioned there in the Brisa, the way the Gemara is amending it to say that no, Afas Svina Tameya, even the boat of the Jordan River is going to be a Kabul Tama, not just a Kli Cheres that you said, or Shal Eitz that you said. Not only that, but also the Svina is going to be Kabul Tama, that I'm doubling down, that it will have the Tama, which is, that's Kechananya, who he says that because the boat of the Jordan River is metaltelis molivarekan. The whole reason why you said it's not mekabel tuma is because it's not metaltelis molivarekan, but a very small boat could be moved in when it's full. So that's like Chananya, and therefore that is how you're supposed to read the Brisa, that the machlekes is that the Tanakama is like the Tana of our Mishnah, and Rabbi is going like Hananya regarding the machlekes, regarding what's the reason why we say it's tar, and therefore we said this nafkaminas, and those are the two nafkaminas we said in the previous daf is the two different interpretations we had thought of Razvid and Rav Papa how to explain the halacha of this brisa, which is the nafkamina in those two different opinions, either when it's made of the cheres or when it's a small bowl. But now the Gemara explains the source, which the Gemara brings three different interpretations. Umedris kli cheres. This that we're assuming, and we're explaining all along, that when the zav sits on the earthenware vessel, that regarding the tumah of medris, menol and the tar, where do we know that the kli cheres can be tar from medris, that there's no tumah of medris on the kli cheres? Samachizki, he brings the source. He says, Damakar, the pasuk, the Yikr, says, Ve'isha sheyiga b'mishkavah. If a man is going to touch his bed, now when you say his bed is him and his bed. So both him and his bed are being mentioned there in his bed. So makish mishkavah loy. So it's comparing his bed to him. Mahu islay tar b'mikvah, just like the zav could be purified by going to the mikvah. Af mishkavah nama islay tar b'mikvah. So too it must be that his bed that's getting the tumah of medrash of him laying on it has to be something that can be purified in the mikvah. So too a similar source. Yebei b'shmol Tanner, he brings a different pasuk, which is a similar idea. Pasuk in the Yikra that says Kimishkav nidasa yila, like the bedding of the nida, that's what it will be to her. Now makish mishkav Allah, it's comparing her to her bed to tell you mahi islatar b'mikvah, just like the woman, the nida, the zav has purification in the mikvah. Of mishkav and islatar b'mikvah, also her bed has something that's purification in the mikvah. And what does this teach us? Lafuke kli cheres. It's coming to exclude the kli cheres, the less litar b'mikvah. An earthenware vessel has no purification in the mikvah. How do we know that? Because the pasuk says when it becomes tamei, the pasuk says yishaver. The pasuk says elsewhere that in Vayikra they have to break it, which tells you that the only way you can purify kli cheres is by breaking it. So it's not similar to that of the zav or to the nida, because they can purify by the mikvah and the kli cheres cannot. Therefore, it does not qualify to be kamishkav, to be mishkavai. Doesn't qualify to have the halacha of tamas medrash. That's the first two sources that the Gemara brings. How do we know to exclude that of a kli cheres? But the problem is must Rabbi Shloimy. Rabbi Shloimy asked him this in the following brisa. Brisa says a mapitz, a reed mat, or places says it's made out of something else, but Rashi says a reed mat, b'mes, regarding it being makabel, the tumah of from a dead person, minayin, how do you know it's going to become tummy? In other words, what's the Brisa's question? Because we find that what's called pshuti kliyates, wooden vessels that don't have a receptacle, they're totally flat, they don't have the tumah of naga of a sheret. If a sheret touches it, it's not going to become tummy, because it has to be a kli, it has to have a receptacle. Now, and that's what the Brisa is asking. How do we know, however, that a kli that's fit for sitting and laying down on it, which is what a mat is, how do we know that it's going to have the tumah of naga mes? So although tumah sheretz it's not going to have, but how do we know it's going to have the tumah of a dead person? Meaning, although if it doesn't have a receptacle, it's not going to become a tumah, but if it could be laid on, if it has tumah of medris, how do you know that then, yes, actually will have the tumah of a mes? So that's the Brisa continues on the base and says, well, v'dinu, we know it from logic, it's a kavol chaimer. What's the kavol chaimer? If small jugs made out of earthenware, shetahirin bezav, which they're tahar from a zav, meaning they do not become tamei through the zav in any which way situation, as Rashi explains why. There's no tumah of medris, because a small earthenware jug is not meant for sitting. And moreover, since it's small, it's also made out of earthenware, it's going to shatter. So technically you can't sit on it, so it's not going to have tumah of medris. It also does not have the tumah of maga, of touch, because earthenware vessels only become tummy from their aver, from their airspace. And since it's a very small earthenware jug, you can't get your finger inside because it's a very narrow opening. So it's not going to have the tumah of maga. It also cannot have the tumah of hesed, which is unique by the zav and the nida, that when they make something move, it causes it to become tamei. Why not? Is because the Torah used the terminology of touching when it talks about the tumah of hesed, to tell you that whatever cannot become tamei through touch, which just can't because you can't get in your finger into the airspace, cannot have the tumah of hesed. As Rashi says, we find similarly in the Gemara Chulun Kavdalma Beis regarding the tumah of masa. It says that which could become tumah through maga could become tumah through masa, and that's the same thing over here regarding hesed. Now Rashi wonders. He says, wait a second. You could touch the inside space of even a small earthenware jug by taking a hair, which the Brisa says in Teretz Kainim that the hair of a zav is metame, and you could get the hair inside that earthenware jug. And that says Rashi, no, it has to be a vessel that's fit for the touching of his flesh. And that's why the Torah used the terminology of touching with his flesh, like it says in Yikra Zav, "Vanegea bebasar zav," and that the vessel touches the flesh of the zav. So therefore, again, that was a lengthy explanation just to explain what we're explaining what the kavol chaimer is. We're saying the earthenware vessels cannot become tamei from a zav, a small earthenware jug. As we said, it can't have medus, it can't have hesed, it can't have maga, it can't have all these different things. Now, yet still tamei b'mes, this small earthenware jug still becomes tamei in the oil of a mess. Like it says in Mibid Yud V'chol Kli Psuch, any open vessel, which this is open, becomes tamei from a dead person. So you have the following Kabul Chaimer. So then the mapet's a mat. Shetami bezav, where it becomes tamei from a zav because you can lay on it. And it says v'chala mishka, whatever's laid down, and it's a mat. It's meant for laying down. So it becomes tamei from a zav. So any din shei tamei b'mes isn't a kabul chaimer that should become tamei from a dead person. So it's from a kabul chaimer. If it's going to have tamei zav, and the klicharis doesn't have that small earthenware jug, doesn't have tamei zav, and has tamei mes, here has tamei zav. For sure it's going to have tamei mes. And Rashi says this is where we know that we mentioned throughout Shas, like a needed Daf Mem Tes on the base, that whatever has tamei medrus automatically has tamei mes, even though it's pshuti kli'etz. As we said, generally a wooden vessel that does not have a receptacle should not become tamei. It doesn't have tamei sheretz, doesn't have tamei mes. But if it has tamei medrus, it automatically default from this kabul chaimer includes that's going to have the tamei of mes. Okay, that is the halacha. And this is where the question begins. Now, on that the question is, Vamai, why are you saying that's become tamei from a zav? That's going to have tamei medrus. This mat, the whole kabul chaimer, that this mat is going to have tamei mes, is because it has tamei zav. And so kabul chaimer from Pachim Tanim, that for sure it's going to have, there it doesn't have zav and has mes, for sure it's going to have mes. I understand. But how are you even starting off? Why does this mat have tamei medrus? Hales le tahara b'mikvah. You cannot purify this mat in the mikvah, because like Rashi explains, when the Torah mentions the halacha of immersing in the mikvah, by the parsha of Shratzim, by the parsha of Midyan, those vessels that I mentioned over there, those are the ones that we learn that has halacha of tefillah. Now, pshute kli'etz, which is what a mat is, it's a wood type of a vessel that has no receptacle. That was not mentioned over there regarding the laws of Tumah, and we do not learn out the laws of tefillah regarding it. And it does not have the halacha of tar b'mikvah, because only those things that were mentioned over there have the halacha of tar. Like for example, Rashi says, food items and beverages, you cannot tovel in the mikvah because it doesn't mention that over in the parsha. We don't say that there's tefillah in the Torah regarding it. And the same thing is regarding this mat, which is pshuti kli'etz, don't have tar b'mikvah. So that refutes your whole teaching. You said that the reason why we exclude klicheres from the laws of medrus is because it does not have tar b'mikvah, and it has to be mishkavai. It has to be comparing him to his bedding. Well, if that matter, you see here in this halacha, in this brisa, that a mapitz that pshuti kli'etz that does not have tar b'mikvah, and yet it does have tamei medrus, so that refutes your premise. On that Rabbi Shloimy says no. Shani Hasim over there in the mapitz, in the mat, is different. Why? At least it has, in its type, there are wooden vessels that do have tar b'mikvah, if it has a kli kibul. And therefore, since it has in its category, so therefore, even when it doesn't have a kli kibul, it will have the tamei medrus. In contrast to klicheres, the klicheres never has, and therefore it's not going to have the tamei of medrus. And that Amalei. So he said back to Chanina, Rahman Islam Haydaita, heaven should save us from that type of an opinion, because as Rashi explains, since this mat itself does not have tar b'mikvah, it's no different than klicheres. So we're back to the question, based on your premise, why does the mapitz have the tamei medrus? On that, Reb Chanina responds, Adab, to the contrary, Rachman Slan midai didach. Heaven should save us from your opinion. So the more wonders, but b'tayim amai. Well, how do we understand Reb Chanina? Where do you have this idea that because it's species, even though by it doesn't have, that it's going to become tamei? As Rashi explains, the Gemara's question is, since you're comparing the tar b'mikvah is learned out from the zav itself, so it should, just like the zav himself has tar, the item itself should also have to have tar. Not just that the category. How do we understand his opinion that he holds? Because the category of kli'etz could have a tar b'mikvah, and if it's going to have medrus, then even when it doesn't have a kli kibul, that it's going to have. But why? It itself does not have tar b'mikvah. Why would you say it has tamei medrus? So the Gemara answers because trei kroik siga. There's two psukim that are written in this context. On the one hand is the pasuk, like we mentioned regarding the zav. It says ve'isha sheyiga b'mishkal, a man that's going to touch his bed. So, like we said in Nomen Aleph, the bed is compared to him. Now, however, there's another pasuk over there in Vayikra that says v'chol mishkav asher yishkav alav hazav yitmar. Any bed that the zav sits on is going to be tamei. Now, here it doesn't say mishkavai. It does not compare him to the bed. So it seems like it's saying that even though it's not similar to the zav, because it doesn't say mishkavai, it will become tamei. So haketza, does it have to be similar to him or not? That's what Rabbi Chanina explains. If yesh b'mina, if this in this species, in this category, there is a type that could have tar b'mikvah like the zav, the navagav the lisla tar b'mikvah. Then even though it does not have tar in the mikvah, this specific one, that's what the second pasuk of V'chol Mishkav is coming to tell you, that even though it itself does not, but its category does, which is like the wooden vessel, the pshuti kliates, the mappets, the mat, since there are kliates that do have a kli kibul would become, so therefore it's going to have tamam medras. But let's say it's like kli cheres, that does not have it all in this category, ever having tar b'mikvah. There's no tar b'mikvah in the kli cheres. That's where the pasuk is being makish mishkav eloi. That's what's comparing him to his bedding, to tell you mishkavai, to tell you that that a kli cheres, that none of its vessels can become tara in the mikvah. Then there's not going to be any of tuma of medras. That's the difference between the pshuti kliates of the mappets, where it's going to have medras, like we see in this brisa, in contrast to the svara, like we said, which still stands, that the reason why there's not going to be any tummy medras on the kli cheres because it doesn't have tara mikvah. It's not compared to mishkavai, to the zav himself. Now, on that the Gemara brings one more interpretation. Rav Ami says a third interpretation. How do we know that there's no tumah medras by kli cheres? He says medras kli cheres tar when the zav sits on the earthenware vessel. It's going to be tar. He says malachas from a pasuk b'midbar. Interesting source. The pasuk b'midbar says v'chol kli pesuach, and any open vessel, which Rashi points out, that's obviously talking about kli cheres. Why? Because in contrast to all of the vessels, a kli cheres only becomes tummy from its opening. It has to be from its ear space. It wouldn't have to say open vessel. All of the vessels become tummy even from its exterior. The only one that becomes tummy from its interior is a kli cheres. So we're talking about a kli cheres, all open vessels. Asher ain't summit pasalav, that there's no seal tightly fastened on it, no tightly sealed fastened seal, so the tummy is going to come inside. It's going to make the vessel tummy, like the pasuk there is discussing. Now, the inference of the pasuk is hayesh summit pasalav, but if there is a tightly fastened seal, as we know, this halach is mentioned many times in Shas, tarhu, it's going to protect the earthenware vessel, whatever's inside of it, because the tummy is only from the inside, and it's totally covered, so therefore it's not going to be any tummy. Now, and this says Rav the following idea. He says, now, milo yaskinan, aren't we talking about, like Rashi says, can we not interpret the pasuk that it's talking about, that we're saying that if it's tightly fastened, it's going to be tar, in all situations. Even the yachadinu, even if someone designated that earthenware vessel should be le'ishtei nida, for his wife who's a nida to sit in it all the days when she's a nida. It's like, okay, when you're nida, because they were very important, the laws of tumatar, so which were in Talmudic times, that you go ahead and you sit on that box. That's your nida bench. Now, that could even be this kli pasuach, that if it had a tamid puzzle, would be tar. For Kamrachman, the Torah is telling you that it's going to be tar, which means to say because it's a tightly fastened seal, it's going to protect whatever's inside of it from the olam mes. Now the problem is, if you would tell me, and this is the inferential teaching of Rav, that the kli cheres that she's sitting on could at least become tamei of medras because she's sitting on it, it's like a bench, then how would it protect from the tumah of mess in the oil? The halacha is whatever could contract tumah cannot be chatzitza, cannot interpose from tumah. So how would it not become tumah of oil? Because it's summit puzzle, doesn't make a difference, but it's tumah as medras. And if it contracts tumah, it cannot block tumah. Obviously, says Rav, very interesting source. It says, obviously there's no tumah medras by kli cheres. So therefore, kli cheres, earthenware vessel that's surrounded with a tightly fastened seal, is going to be tar from old tumah. And Rashi says, and what's with tumah of hesed? That also is not going to be tummy, as we explained earlier, because we said whatever cannot have a tumah of maga, which you can't because it's tightly fastened, there's no way to get in. It cannot have a tumah of masa, and therefore it's going to protect whatever's inside of it. But additionally, what we're learning out, it's not going to have tumah medras, because or else it would not protect for the tumah puzzle, and that's the third source regarding this halacha. How do you know kli cheres does not have a tumah medras, which again we came into that brisa which we were discussing when we brought in the machlekes Rabbi and Tanakama, which were related to the previous stuff regarding machlekes of Ar Mishnah and Chananya, regarding the source of why a svin is tar, which has the two ramifications, which we have the Zvid's interpretation and the Papa's interpretation of Daf, regarding the svina made out of cheres and the svinas hayarden of the small boats which are metalton molabrik. Now we're doing the next Mishnah, again another interesting complex Mishnah, which discusses primarily the laws of Klayim. The Mishnah here also, all these Mishnahs are generally discussing one halacha. The Mishnah says again the same theme of minayin. Minayin la'aruga. How do we know regarding a vegetable patch, a row of, its own independent row of vegetables, shisha tvachim. If it's 6 tvachim squared, shezar b'teicha, that you could actually plant inside that one patch, chamisha zerayim. 5 different types of seeds, and it won't be considered that it's mixed together, meaning it'll be that you did the social distancing, so to speak, of the vegetables, necessary distancing, and will not be a violation of Klayim. How are you going to do this? You'll have Dal al Dal Ruchas Haruga. You're going to have on the four sides of the patch, which you're going to fill up the whole side basically until the corner. And the achas be'emtza, you're going to do one seed, the fifth species, going to be in the middle. As we have here on the slide, some Gemaras have it inside the Rashi itself. We just see the picture where Rashi addresses an important question. It says, although, if you look at the corners, they seem to be very near each other. They don't have the distance which we're going to be discussing shortly regarding the 3 tfachim, like you have from the sides to the middle. They're going to be nourishing, because nourishment goes a tefach and a half, and the corners are not 3 tefachim from each other. Because if you don't want them to nourish from each other, this goes up until a distance of a tefach and a half, and this goes down a tefach and a half. There's only a tefach squared over here. They're going to be nourishing. Here I get it, why they're far. But how does it work regarding these corners? The rest is a very important principle that we're discussing over here. That's not a problem, because it says actually interesting for the laws of Klein, the only thing that you need to have is a recognition that they're not mixed together. That's what the Torah is particular about regarding Klein, but the fact that they nourish together, that actually we're not concerned, as Rashi holds, that even Klai HaKerem, even a vineyard of grapevine with other types of, let's say, seeds of wheat and barley, that's not a problem. Like a Mishnah teaches in Baba Basra, that you could actually put, if you have a wall separating from your field and the neighbor's field, you could put your grapevine on one side, and he could plant his wheat right here on the other side, even though underneath they're both nourishing together. That doesn't make a difference. For sure, Rashi says, which his opinion is that the climb of Israel of seeds is only rabbinic. We're not concerned that they're going to nourish from each other. We're going to discuss this on a future daf regarding Rosh Tur, which is on daf Pei, which if we actually could cut right into another field or 2 rows, it's really literally in the other field. But since you could recognize that it's from a different patch, so therefore it's going to be permitted. So here also is the same idea. Where here you're running from east to west and north to south. So therefore, you could tell that they're considered different, they're considered distinct. But what we're discussing over here is regarding the middle seed itself, regarding the seeds on all 4 sides. There you have to distance the amount of how much nourishment from the ground is, because there you don't have any recognition. If it would be close, it would be considered mixed together. It's only by here where it's different longitudinal, latitudinal directions. Therefore, that's not a problem. And as long as you have just a small separation, it's already considered sufficient. The middle one has to have that division of 3 tefachim. But be that as an A, how do we know this halacha that you're allowed to do this? You're allowed to plant on 4 sides and 5 in the middle. So it says the Mishnah, like it says a pasuk in Yeshaya. It says Ticha'or, it's like the land. Toitzi tzimcha will bring forth its sprouts. Uchigana, and like a garden, zeiru'eh tatzmiach, its seeds it will sprout. Now, zarulei never, it doesn't say in the singular its seed. Ela zeiru'eh, rather its seeds in the plural. And the Gemara is going to explain how do you see from here 5 seeds in 6 tefachim. So the Gemara jumps right in. My mashma, where do you see from this pasuk that 5 seeds and let alone 6 tefachim? Some of you says, it says in the pasuk, Ticha aretz toitzi tzimcha. Now, toitzi, bring forth, is chad, is one terminology. Whenever it's talking about sprouting or the vegetation itself, that's another reference. So toitzi, bringing forth, that's 1. Tzimcha, sprouting, that's 2. That's chad, that's another one. Hari tree, that's 2. Zeru'eha, its seeds are in the plural. That's what the Mishnah was referring to. It doesn't say zara, it says zeru'eha. That's 3, that's another 2. Ha'arba, that's, so far you have 4. And tatzmiach, of causing to sprout, chad, that's another one. That's ha'chamisha, so you have a total of 5. Now, the thing is, but the 6 tefachim are not learned out from the pasuk. Where do you see that? So that's to continue top of Pehei and Aleph. It's actually Machlekes Rashi and Tais how to qualify. Tais actually says it's like it's learned up in the pasuk. Rashi makes it sound like that it's not. But one thing is, v'kimlu rabbanan. The rabbis, they had an understanding that a regular patch, which is planted in it, the chamisha, when you plant 5 seeds, which that's the measurement of 5 seeds. Beshita in 6 tvachim, lo yanki. So then they're not going to be nourishing the middle one and the ones on the side, mehadadi. They're not going to be nourishing from each other. Because like we said, and we explain a little bit more now, the nourishment of every seed goes for a distance of a tefach and a half, including the place of the plant itself. So from the plants that are here on the sides, on the edge of the patch, in relation to the middle one, is a distance of 3 tefachim, because we're including the vegetable itself. Now from these 2 we can learn out that the Tana of our Mishnah holds that the nourishment of a plant is a tefach and a half. from the fact that it doesn't tell you that when you're planting on the sides, on the edge of the patch, that has to be further away like in the corner. No, it doesn't say that. It's even if you're going to plant it opposite the middle, that's okay. Obviously, you see that a distance of 3 tvachim is sufficient, because here you have a tefach and a half from this one, and a tefach from this one, and they're not going to be nourishing one from the other. Now, although regarding Klein, we said that you need to have a recognition, and we're not concerned for nourishing, like we're going to learn later on in the Mishnah regarding Reish Tor. It's like when you have a diagonal going into another patch and 2 rows, but that's what Rashi says. Here, however, that's regarding separating the seeds of the patch. You need to make sure that it's not mixed together. Now, less than the measurement of nourishment, for the middle one, you don't have any recognition. So therefore, for this one, this one we said is okay, because you obviously see this going this way, this is going this way. So that's considered a hecker, that's enough. The middle one, you can't tell, there's no hecker, it's in the middle. A center it could be either one. So that's where you need to have a separation. That's what the pasuk is alluding to us when it says 5 seeds in the patch. What is that referring to? That's referring to, as the Chachamim knew that from their scientific knowledge. Taisa makes it sound like it's from the pasuk itself. The way it sounds like from Rashi is that they understood that that's how you could have. How can you have 5 in the field? You could have 5 in the patch by having 6 by 6 tvachim. Why is that sufficient? It's like we explained, and the Gemara next time will explain in more greater detail why it's exactly this way and not another way. But that's exactly what you could have, because these could go literally all the way to basically the corner, and just not the corner itself, because you have to make a division showing this way is going this way. That we understand. And in the middle, to have that separation, to have 5, because you have 4 sides and you have 5. How are you going to have 5 in one patch? That would be 6 by 6. Why 6 by 6? Because you have the 4 sides, and that's okay. And the middle one. How do you get the middle one different from the rest? Is by having a tefach and a half this way, a tefach this way, in all 4 directions. That's how you're going to get the 5 different seeds in one patch. That'll be a shiur of 6 by 6. Something we discussed in today's Daf and Shabbos Daf. We said that regarding Hananya, it's on a race. Said from Hananya that he says that a boat that's moved when it's full is Mekabel Tumah. He said the whole reason why the halacha of the Mishnah is not Mekabel Tumah is because it's not Metaltim Mali V'Reikan, but he said a boat, let's say that of the Yarden, which is Metaltil Mali V'Reikan, is Mekabel Tumah because it's compared to Sak. So that's what we said, that even if it's moved through Shvarim, it's also, as a Chiddush of Rabbah, that he said that it's also going to have the halacha of metaltim olav. It's considered that it could be moved, albeit you need oxen to pull it. That's okay. It's still considered metaltim olav. How do you know that? As we find halacha by the 3 wagons, which is brought a very similar halacha regarding the 3 boxes, regarding Tumas Medrash, Tumas Mas, no Tum at all, 3 different types of boxes, 3 different types of wagons. But one of the wagons was that we said if it's that would carry stones, which are very heavy, you can't move it without oxen. And still, you said that if it's going to have holes smaller than that of a pomegranate, there's a Mekabel Tumah. How? Because it's metaltil Mali V'Reikan. Mali V'Reikan, how are you pulling such a wagon? With oxen, you see that's considered metaltil Mali V'Reikan. That's the source for Rabbi's teaching. Then we had an explanation of a brisa, which we said from the Tanakama, the words were that Medrash Klicheres is going to be tahar. And Rabbi says Afasvina, which we more than understand what's Afasvina. Afasvina what? Afasvina tahar. We know that it's tahar from, if there's no Medrash, and what's the halacha? We know that. So the Gemara says 2 different interpretations, which was Rav Zvid and Rav Papa, which ultimately the Gemara rejected Rav Zvid, and says if it's like the halachic tanoi of our Mishnah or that of Chananya, that's what really the machlekes was regarding, whether it be Svina Shalcheres or whether it be Svina Siyardin. That is, you have to add on words to the brisa, and the Tanakama was saying like the Tan of our Mishnah, which was that a svina of the Yarden is going to be tahar because it's like derech nebelev yam. Rabbi Yisrael, when he's saying avas svina, that it's going to be tamei. What he's coming to say is like Chananya. Why is it be tamei? Because it's talking about the svina of the Yarden, which that's metaltil also malei, because it's very small, and that's what he's coming to say that boat is also going to become tamei. Now we said that the medrash of the klicheres was mentioned in the brisa. We said that that's going to be tar. So the Gemara says, how do you know? What's the source? Why would klicheres be different? Why would it have tara? Why wouldn't it have tamah medrash? We have 3 different interpretations. The first 2 really go together. The pasuk says a man that's going to touch his bed of the zav. His bed is saying 2 things: his and bed. So we're comparing him to his bed. So to kamishkav nidasa yila, that her bedding is like her, which it's comparing it to the zav or to the nida, which tells us, just like he could go and she could go mitar herself in the mikvah, whatever's going to have tumas medrus, his bedding also has to have tar in the mikvah. That excludes klicheres, which does not have tar in the mikvah. How do we know that? Because it says yishaver, when the klicheres become tar, you have to break it, you can have tar in the mikvah. Now, so what's with the mappets? We have a brayse that says a mappets has tumas medrus, and that's how we know it actually has tumas mes from a kavachamer from pach and gitana, which doesn't have tumas zav and has tumas mes, and here it has tumas zav and medrus has tumas mes. Mappets has tumas zav. How's that possible? It doesn't. It's a kli does not have tar in the mikvah. Oh, you know why? Because b'minai a eitz kli that has a makabel is going to be makabel tama, so therefore it's going to have the mappets going to have tumas medrus, even though it itself does not have the tuma, does not have tar in the mikvah. How do we know this? What do you mean? Why? Because of Mina? Yeah, because Rabbi Chanina explained, because there's two psukim. One says b'mishkave, comparing him to his bed. One says v'chol mishkav, not comparing to the bed. The one that's comparing him to the bed, if it's ein b'minai, which you have nothing, which is like cheres, that we're saying is not going to be, it's not going to have tumah of medrus. In contrast, v'chol mishkav, which makes it sound like you don't have to compare it to him, is if it's yesh b'minai. Yesh b'minai, then it will have the tumah of mishkav, it will have the tumah of medrus, which that's the halacha of the eitz, which is really the halacha of the mappets. Even the pshudi kli eitz, it will have the tumah of medrus. The third source we brought for how do we know that kli cheres does not have tumah of medrus was because the pasuk says v'kol kli pasuach, which means cheres, like we said, the vessel has to be open. This cheres, which only comes tumah from its inside, it says asher ain't tumid pasuk. It's not tightly fastened. The inference is, but if it is tightly fastened, then it'd be tar. Wait a second. That would seem to be even if he designated for his wife, who's a nida, to sit on it. Now, obviously, that means to say that kli cheres cannot have medrus, because if it had medrus, then it would not be able to be chatzitzu with the tightly fastened seal to make it doesn't have tumas oil b'mez. If it's telling me that with the seal it's going to have no tumas oil b'mez, obviously it doesn't have tumas medrus, and that's the source how you know that klicheres doesn't have tumas medrus. Moving to the next Mishnah, we said how we know that a patch that's 6 by 6 tfachim, that you could plant 5 different types of seeds in that one patch. You have 4 on the sides, and you have 1 in the middle. So, because it says 5 terminologies of planting in this one pasuk, so that tells us that there's 5 types of seeds. Now, the rabbis knew that 5 seeds, that's hey beshita and 6 tfachim, that it doesn't nourish from each other. What doesn't nourish? The middle doesn't nourish with the sides around it. So you have this patch, you have the middle one, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. The sides, like we said, as long as you leave a gap on the corners that you don't plant, you could tell that they're all independent because they're running from north to south, and they're running from east to west. So you could tell that they're different. The only one that you need to have that distance of 6 by 6 tefachim is the middle one, because here you have no hecker that it's something independent. It's a center point. So here, as the Rashi explained, the nourishment is a tefach and a half. Here it's a tefach and a half. So in every direction you're going to have a tefach and a half. So that's a recognition that they're different because it doesn't nourish, and that's going to be its hecker. Here the hecker is that they're different directions. Here the hecker is going to be that's not nourishing, and that's how you see that you're going to have 5 different types of seeds in an area of 6 by 6 tefachim in one patch. Thank you to any for hosting us.